In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a recessed base, so all of those details are actually below the lip of the base. Let's get into it. To make a recessed base, start with your normal GW, oval, circle, whatever base, and you want to cut this top layer out. Easiest way to do that is turning it upside down, and we're going to cut around this perimeter here. I'm going to cut through these supports first. And now we're going to use the sanding knife to cut all the way through. So I recommend, look how lightly I'm holding the knife. I'm just going to cut each section out. This will take quite a few passes. I'll do this one in its entirety, and then I'll do the rest off camera, and that's through. Flip it over to check. You can just get my thumbnail in there. That's all the way through. Do that all the way around and keep the top of the base. Once you've cut through, you should have your topper and the rim. We are going to need the topper. Precise, the cutting won't be very precise, so you can see here that section is slightly thicker. So what we're going to do is go in with a scalpel. I'm just going to shave the inside edge with any sort of extra material. Do be careful you don't cut through the rim. Now you can use a draw filing method of scraping it if you are in any doubt you'll cut through. So clean up the entire inside edge and be ready for the next step. So the edges are all nice and cleaned up, but because we've removed the topper, this rim has lost a lot of its rigidity. So it's actually rocking slightly, which is why we've kept that. Grab a sheet of ABS plasticard and we're going to glue it down. One thin bead all around the edge should do this. Make sure you leave an edge of about 1 millimeter. If it does slip and slide, and when we cut this back, because it's at an angle, you want that extra room. The reason we've kept the topper is to make sure it keeps its shape. So very carefully insert it. We don't actually want this to glue down. That just makes sure I haven't squeezed it tight this way or this way and deformed it. Now, sort of depending on the depth you want your base to go to, I want this to be a very deep base, as deep as that in fact, but if you wanted a more shallow base, you can actually glue that down and then only have a depth of about 2 to 3 millimeters instead of the 5. The next step, you're going to need super glue, a cork tile, coconut fibres, and the Citadel Skulls kit. I'm going to start with a piece of this, roughly the same size as the base. That will do, close enough. This is actually slightly taller than the base it's going to go into, which is fine. And I'm going to flood the inside of this with super glue. Normal safety for super glue: don't let it touch your skin. It reacts to moisture, and there's plenty of that in your hands. Use a stick to manipulate it instead. Work in a well ventilated area, and if you can't, make sure there's a fan blowing the fumes away from you. Don't work directly over the top of it. If you remember all of that, you should be fine. Doesn't stick if you work fast enough. I'm just going to start filling up the gaps, like so. I'm aiming for more of a sort of nomadic steps, sort of dried earth kind of effect here. I have a surprising amount of time to work with this because there's not much moisture in cork bark. It's kind of like a DIY jigsaw puzzle. So there's still plenty of super glue down there. This is where the coconut fibre comes in. I'm just going to sprinkle that into the gaps and let it do its magic. And then remove any of that excess. It's not looking too bad. I'm going to repeat that until I get the depth on the gaps I want. That's a bit too shallow for me. So I'll go repeat that process. Well, I've filled up all those gaps with the coconut fibre. It's super glue. It's gone off really fast. I want to add some skulls, so all I do is anywhere I want a skull, just add in super glue. And very carefully add it using a scalpel. Yeah, I don't want to catch myself with it. If you worry about it not sticking, just add a little bit of the fibres. That'll help speed it up and hold it in place. Add as many as you like at this stage. I think I've got 6 here. With the poly cement and the super glue and all these other little bits dry, I'm ready to cut it out. So I'm going to give it quite a wide berth. So give it at least 2 mil around the edges. Yeah, letting the knife do all the work. And it will pop out. Trim down these outer edges. Once you've got it trimmed down roughly, go back in with a scalpel with a brand new blade and just gently trim off the edges. Try not to carve into the black base, although you can use a filler to bring it back. It's better to not cut it though. And just be super careful going all the way around. Notice I am cutting toward myself. That is dangerous. But my thumb is out of the way. So if it misses and goes like that, it's not going to catch anything. Go all the way around and we'll polish it on the next step. I've gone around the edge with a knife and trimmed it. I'm now going to go around with an emery stick and take it down as close as I can. The white ABS plasticard is still proud of the rim of the base because I can still catch my thumbnail on it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to file it down in an elliptical manner until I start seeing the black being filed down. That's when I know I've gone past the white. So remember, when you're filing, put pressure on one part of it, and that'll be your cutting face. That's where most of the energy is going to go. Just starting to catch it there. And it will start looking like this. So I've just lightly abraded it. My thumbnail is no longer catching on the white plasticard. So you're going to want to do that all the way around. Once I've gone around with the rough edge, I like to just polish it with the smooth side. Because when I go to cast this, I don't want there to be any sort of imperfections. I want it as clean as I possibly can. So, like with the rough side, just go all the way around and quickly polish it. The only problem with using cork tiles is it's got quite a distinctive texture. And if I cast this in silicone, it's going to capture that. And it's going to look, well, I wouldn't say cheap, but everyone sort of recognises it, which isn't great. So, instead, I'm just going to grab some old technical paint. And if you've watched any of my previous videos, you know there's a cheaper way to make this. Don't worry, this is just an old one I have on standby. And I'm just going to put a little bit of texture on it just to break it up a little bit so it doesn't look quite so obviously like a piece of cork. When that texture paint is dried, it'll be ready for casting. There's nothing stopping you making loads of these yourself, but it is quite labour intensive. I'm just going to make 1 or 2, then cast up as many copies as I need. So if you followed my mould making guide, you'll have a simple open mould like this, which you can then use Casting process I've also done to make a base. And once you've made all your bases up, you can paint it. There you go. I can make as many of those as I want. So this is going to be for the new Gloomspite Gits Chariot army. I reckon I'm probably going to need about 8 or 10 of these. That's a huge time-saving effort I've just done. Overall, that'll save me hours of work having to do that every time. Now I can just cast it, wait a few hours, and then pop the mould. Well, do give that a go and let me know how you get on, and hope you found it useful.